What if rest wasn't just a personal wellness practice, but a policy? Welcome to Rooted, Rested, and Renewed. This is the third and final episode of our mini podcast series here at The Intersection. The Intersection is a project of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, built to create space for those on the front lines of health, healthcare, and grassroots organizing to share how they are working to build an anti-racist healthcare system. I'm your host, Carmen D. Harris. And here we believe rest is a critical investment that supports the overall health and well-being of society. Rest is not a luxury, rest is leadership. And for those on the front lines of ensuring health is not a privilege but a right, rest is a critical practice necessary to shape a reimagined system and to address manifestations of structural racism in policy, practice, and resource flow. Before we start, let's root. We're going to revisit the practices that we have in our first two episodes and put them all together. First, let's begin by receiving 3 collective breaths. And we'll place the tip of our tongue at the roof of our mouth, just beyond the ridges. And if you're willing and able, you may cross your right arm and place it onto your left thigh, and place your left hand on the top of your right thigh, and just begin a rhythm of slow and steady tapping as you bring your awareness to your inhales and your exhales. This process can be done anytime you feel activated. You want to calm yourself down, breathing in and out of your nose. And slow and steady tapping activates the bilateral parts of our system that tells us you're safe. And as you are complete with that practice, I would like to welcome our guest again, Esther and Imani, into our conversation. Esther and Imani, if you would please introduce yourself. Imani, we'll start with you.
I'm Imani Joy Samuels. I'm the founder of Huru and a contemplative guide for all of those who are seeking rest. My work sits at the intersection of rest, healing, freedom, and flourishing. And I draw on a multitude of wisdom and a variety of faiths, my lived experience, of course, and my studies in spirituality, health, and social systems. We create reflective spaces that support individual and collective restoration, especially within systems that are shaped by racial harm and chronic exhaustion. I'm also the creator of Elderberry, a spirit-led AI companion for slowing down, deepening clarity, and navigating life with tenderness. I'm a wife and mother of 2 young feminists, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Imani. Esther, we welcome your introduction.
I am Esther Boykin, a cultural strategist and consultant with 20 years of experience as a licensed marriage and family therapist. As the founder of Esther B Consulting, I help leaders move from burnout to equity-centered ways of working and leadership that is rooted in self-compassion as a strategy for sustainable success.
Welcome, Esther and Imani, and you all have been with us for the past 2 episodes, and we welcome our listeners back. And we've been talking and sitting in different places and spaces with these questions of, what if rest wasn't just a personal wellness practice, but a policy? What if rest was a design principle, something we built into our workflows, budgets, and institutional expectations in collective agreement? We can paraphrase to start off this episode with a quote from our dear beloved Toni Morrison, who shares with us in many ways, imagination is how we survive. And today, let's talk about what's possible when we imagine, what's possible when we rest, what's possible when we offer our visionary leaders of organizations this opportunity to dream new worlds if we are not too tired to see beyond what is here and existing. So I would like to open our conversation today with you, Esther, and say, come with me and imagine the practices and policies have shifted. What role has rest played?
I love a good daydream. I think the first role that rest has played, as you just laid out, is the opening up of possibility. I think it might have been in episode 1 where you sort of shared a personal story around the urgency. And I think that so many of our listeners feel that right now. We end up in a place that life or death urgency makes us feel like we can't stop and then we can't see. And so the first thing that comes up for me in this, if things have shifted, is that rest allowed us the space to move out of urgency and into the possibilities of innovation.
What about you, Imani? What role has rest played?
This is so good. I'm actually thinking about just what comes to mind is Marian Wright Edelman, who's the founder of the Children's Defense Fund. And I just remember the No Child Left Behind kind of campaign and movement. And when I'm thinking of this well-rested world and dreaming about it, I feel well. I feel that my family feels well. I feel that this next generation is in a posture of great imagination. They're pursuing their dreams with fervor and without exhaustion. I just am imagining fields of dreams being accomplished. No one person left behind in this movement of rest. There's this mantra of love thy neighbor, and that way to love or the way to care is to ensure our neighbor feels well rested. And so our neighborhoods are safe. Our environment is green. Our economy is thriving. These are all of the intersectional systems that will thrive and flourish once rest is a staple of our society.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. And you tapped right in. It's like we're in a flow into my next question of you both have daughters. What world do you hope for your daughters and grandchildren will inherit and from the work of rest, from a well-rested community? Esther, I'll start with you.
I particularly love this question. So my daughter is older than Amani's children. And so I'm in this interesting space of having a mid-20s, nearly late 20s now, daughter in the world. And so I find myself really reflecting on the progression of how rest has played out, right? Like I'm watching her make decisions around taking time off, around choosing workplaces that really center rest and her well-being as a core component of how to make those choices. Like that it's non-negotiable, which I think I would say for myself and probably many in my own generation, where those were not factors. Like those are not things that we necessarily thought about. And so like already being able to sort of watch her recognize that like rest is non-negotiable. So it makes me really hopeful for what it would look like for grandchildren or even for Amani's children. For the generation after, it becomes something that is a given, an expectation that this is how the world moves in this way and that our well-being, our healthcare is always inextricably, intrinsically rooted in rest as being part of that, as opposed to something that has to either be fought for or negotiated around.
It reminds me of some words that I've heard that rest is no longer something we experience on a vacation, but it's baked into our lives. That we rise refreshed, and chronic stress and health consequences are something our children have only heard of, but never experienced. Thank you all both for sharing what you imagine and dream of for our daughters and sons and nibblings and children, for a future where rest has shifted. into our lives. If you could design one systematic change that protects rest, what would it be? Imani, I'll start with you.
One systematic change to protect rest. There's so many. I'm thinking of two different things. One, I'm thinking of how the UN has a sustainable development goal centered around well-being. It is the gold standard, and there are so many countries that have adopted it. One systematic change would be the US adopting some meaningful, relevant, and fulfilling way of measuring well-being and pursuing well-being of this country. So that's like grand, I think. But then at the micro level, we have all of these milestones in life where we're getting some type of care, whether it's vaccines for certain things in different seasons or guidance from healthcare practitioners. And when I think about the future that I desire, which is like 7 generations of peace and that nervous system being just so calm, how do we measure that practically? And part of that systematically is the full oxygenated, the full breath. How can we ensure that every adult and every child that is a contributor to our society is able to breathe fully? So, we have a lot of heart measures and we have a lot of brain measures, but the lung capacity being almost like our mammogram for every year within our physical, like that is a systematic change that could happen.
Thank you. Esther?
I love Amani's big picture vision. I love these. I immediately went to, in my most pragmatic way, policies that really ensure people are paid in ways that allow them to actually just feel like survival is no longer a question. And then their policies are made around hours worked. And I think those have to go hand in hand because people are working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks for a variety of reasons. But for so many people, it is also about just basic resources and access. And so if Amani and I ruled the world together,
I love it.
Measuring your breath, and also everybody would really have the basics covered. I think everyone probably listening to this podcast on some level, in some corner, this is the work, right? Like, how do we create this kind of equity across healthcare? And probably because of my past experience managing, mental health care workers, I just think so much about how those very pragmatic policies actually could change where rest falls for people. While we've talked about some of these bigger mindset and pressures and expectations that, culture that impacts our ability to rest, I think we would be remiss to not also just acknowledge the very pragmatic things that also impact people's ability to embrace rest as a consistent and non-negotiable part of their existence, their lives.
Yes, you all. I love this so much. This framing of people being paid well and the idea that rest is a care and that these forms of labor, that rest, while it could be contentious to think about this, but is an essential resource and a vital public good that drives our economic and social systems. And so how we are holding people with well-paid resources, we're really talking about creating an anti-racist structural system. We have to go back and think about what was here before these racist structural systems, right? And we had a community of care. We had a love ethic. And since we are here, to which capital is so important, I think these systematic changes also have to place rest into something that is a vital public good that spurs our economy, our way of living. It is connected to the way that we live that allows those who are offering into our society a way to live as well rested, well kept, and cared for individuals that we're all healthy. And when we talk about health is not a privilege, but a right, we can think about rest as an intrinsic value in the calculus of well-being. We're coming to the close of our episode, and one of the things that we do know will be true, if we lean into Octavia, we know the only thing that remains the same is change. Esther and Imani, you all are not leaving us. You will be joining us by leading rest and renewal sessions for the intersection. Share, please, what folks can expect to receive, to offer, to be a part of when they join a rest and renewal session here at the intersection. Esther?
Happy to share first. First of all, I just want to say how excited I am, not only to share with all of you listeners, but also to be in continued collaboration with Imani and working with Carmen and all of the folks at the intersection. I just think this work is amazing. And I love that we are getting an opportunity to bring more rest and renewal practices and an invitation. And I think that is part of what you can expect if you choose to join us, is really an invitation to go deeper into many of the things that we've been talking about in this podcast series, to both think about, explore ways to shift our mindset around rest, micro practices so that you can begin to bring it into your life and into your organizations. You will definitely get a lot of self-compassion practices from me, because that's always my favorite. So we will develop and deepen our understanding of what that really means and what that looks like, and how we can, again, make it a part of a daily practice, both in our own individual lives as well as in our larger communities.
Imani?
Beautiful. I echo Esther. I'm excited to go deeper with all of the listeners. We touched upon kind of this micro vantage point and the communal vantage point, and then the macro systematic. So we'll go deeper into those dimensions. And I'm very excited just to share other ways that we can draw from nature and creation and offer that as wisdom as it relates to rest as well. One of the biggest things I'm most excited about is the reflection time. So just the ability to reflect together, to be in practice together, I think that will reveal so many shared kind of loves for what we're all going through in this moment.
Thank you both. I'm excited to collaborate and co-create with you. The listeners, you all will also be collaborating and co-creating with us as we're in a community together to rest and to renew and to root. That is all that we have. Thank you so much, Imani and Esther, for joining us over these last few episodes here at the intersection. We are so grateful to you all for sharing your expertise. Thank you for joining Rooted, Rested, and Renewed. If you did not catch the first 2 episodes, they are available to you. And until next time, remember, rest is not a luxury. Rest is leadership. The views expressed here do not necessarily reflect the views of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The foundation does not support lobbying efforts, including any activities, examples, or communications referenced during this podcast.